Welcome to the Launch School podcast, where we discuss education, programming, and how to build a rewarding career in software engineering.
Welcome to another episode of the Launch School podcast. Today we have the Social Network folks. The Social Network is a peer-led group focused on just social activities, having fun, in contrast to some of the other peer-led groups such as the Spot, which is focused on studying and maybe assessment preparation. But the Social Network is about social activities, which is a sort of a new group that we have at Launch School. So today we have Liz, Jesse, and Katarina. How's everybody doing today?
Great.
You're doing great. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome. And maybe what we'll do is just start off with a quick introduction. We'll go Liz, Jesse, and then Katarina. How's that?
Sounds good.
All right, take it away, Liz.
All right. So before Launch School, my background has been all over the place. I went to school about 10 years ago now and studied journalism and Arabic. And then I graduated and moved out to San Francisco. And I lived there for 6 years. And while I was there, I published a local print newspaper in the Haight-Ashbury that went out to about 10,000 houses. And then slowly I made my way into tech and more so like untechnical roles or non-technical roles. So I was working at Splunk in community and marketing, and then later at Google doing product support.
How long was that? Like, how many years ago was
that was, between 3 and 4 years ago. So yeah, I was working in those roles and exposed to tech every day and got pretty excited about learning to code. I'd been interested in that in the past, but I had no idea how to get into it. But I had a lot of peers who helped me get started. And then a couple of years ago, I started to teach myself how to code. And I did make some progress, but I still felt pretty stuck when I had to figure out a problem when something broke, or when I was learning something new, it would be pretty stressful. So last year, I moved to Colorado and became a technical support engineer, but that role wasn't actually that technical. And so I wanted more of a challenge, and I decided to do Launch School. I had seen it earlier when I was learning to code, but hadn't committed to it yet. And so I started doing that and wound up leaving my job so I could work on it full time. And that was about maybe 8 months ago now.
Okay, great. And so you from Colorado, so you left sort of the Bay Area tech scene and then went to Colorado and worked on Launch School full time for 8 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So next, Jesse.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is Jesse here. Yeah. Just to give you a bit of introduction and a background about myself. I'm a Nigerian, and I live in Lagos, Nigeria. And with respect to my professional background, I completed my undergraduate degree in accounting in 2012, and I went on to work in the Nigerian Army. I worked there for about 6 years after my degree, and while working there, I was deployed to a unit where soon-to-be veterans were trained in order to help them integrate into civil life. And because of my work there, I felt very unfulfilled while in military service. And I had a longing to pursue my interest in tech, which came as a result of discovering the email service, which might be surprising though. Yeah, but to give context on how slow the introduction to technology access here has been. So that's actually spurred me to go on to apply for discharge from military service. Yeah, but while I was still in service, as a result of the longing I had, I actually made some research, and that was when I came upon Launch School. And as I read
when was this, Jesse?
Yeah, let's say probably 2017 or thereabouts. I came upon Launch School then and I left. I completed my discharge from military service in about 2018. So I came upon
This is
that.
in Nigeria, right? Still, you found launch school in Nigeria.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just knew this is the program for me. So when I decided on leaving, and I applied for discharge, and that took quite some time. It took quite some. I had some challenges, having to process the documentation required for that. And while doing that, I had a lot of people who I respect, who have made valuable input into my life, who have been mentors and have provided guidance for me. Right from when I was a teenager, up to that time, they had many of them, they were not really in support of my decision to leave, because I think it was what most people actually would want. People were actually going for that, but I just felt I wasn't fulfilled here. So I decided to, I still went on with my decision to leave. So when I left, so there were a lot of voices in my head. So as at early 2018, my discharge was already processed. And due to these voices in my head, I just decided to, I decided to just take a detour. I sought some other alternatives, which I'd already been engaged in. I'd already been engaged in photography. And in the course of exploring those alternatives, I was accepted as an intern in a photography institute, where I focused on visual storytelling. And I practiced that for about 1 year. And my photography actually improved in that time, which was a good experience for me. So yeah, so then afterwards, while I was still there, my heart was still yearning for what I really wanted, which is to pursue a career in tech. And launch school kept knocking at the door of my heart. Launch school kept knocking at the door of my heart. But at the same time, in Nigeria here, we most of the things that are valued when it comes to education and stuff like that, we value certificates a lot here. So I started looking for other ways because most of the questions I get is that, okay, will you get a certificate from this program and stuff? And so no, I wasn't going to get anything from that. But I knew that this was going to give me the hardcore skills I needed, because I really do. I knew this was going to give me what I needed. So all these voices kept on coming over and over again. So in the bid for that, I actually applied for an MSc in computer science, and I was offered a place in the program. And at the same time, prior to that, I did apply for a job, and I got an accounting role in an IT firm. But I never resumed for that job because of this same conviction that just kept on coming to my heart, about me going the launch school way and just letting everything slide and focusing on this. So I had to forfeit all of that. And in 2020, in 2020, I commenced the prep course, and I completed the prep course in about July.
So I think you said that you applied for and it got accepted just to a master's in computer science program.
Yes.
But that you didn't pursue that further.
No, I didn't pursue that further because I weighed my options, and I realized that taking the time to develop technical skills will require me to really be a part of launch school rather than being a part of that program.
That's amazing. So what happened in 2017 with regards to launch school that sort of planted a seed? It sounds quite surprising, that you must have already been inclined in some way to have that in the back of your head, whatever message was delivered on maybe the launch school website or something. What do you remember what it was that caused you to keep thinking about it all these years and even turn down graduate school opportunity to do launch school?
Yeah, I think it was the focus on mastery. As much as mastery seems, nowadays I think in launch school, mastery seems romanticized. Let me just use that word. But to be candid with you, I'm even learning, as I'm talking to you now, I'm really learning more about what that means for me personally. And it was mastery, and also the perceived sense of rigor that the program actually offers, the content actually everything that was written about launch school, I think just oozes this sense of quality, which I just said, this is it for me, so.
Yeah, I've always had as a very experienced software engineer, right? There's lots of ways of making money. And I always felt that, hey, if we're going to do launch school and we're going to try to make money this way, let's first and foremost focus on, giving people the skills to last a career, right? That's kind of the operating model. And if you think about the core skills that last a career, what is that? I almost think it's like an attitude, or it's a temperament. It's an approach to learning. It's not this much knowledge or that much knowledge. It's as you said, it's what does mastery mean to you, and how do you become somebody who respects that and values that and figures out how to learn in that way. I think these things are going to last a career, not this much JavaScript knowledge or, this much database knowledge. Although we cover that too. So
yeah.
Great. Yeah. What a great journey. True. And now you're here and doing
I'm here
full time, I guess, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually doing full time. I started the core curriculum in December because after I finished the prep course, I was unwell and I couldn't engage in launch school within that period. So in December I started and I felt lost. Yeah, but I'm finding my way now, so that's good.
Okay, great.
So I'm currently studying the RB 101 course.
Okay, great. Katarina?
Yeah, so just a little bit about my background. I was born in Poland, graduated as a preschool teacher, and directly after that I moved to Sweden. That was, I think, in 2010 or so. And I worked as a teacher for about 7 years here in Sweden, Stockholm. And I found my work very rewarding, but not really challenging enough for me. So I felt I kind of needed a career change, and I had no idea what I wanted to do at that time. So I decided to fulfill my childhood dream and then just take a year off and go and travel to Southeast Asia. Yeah, and then just by total accident, I found a job in Laos in ecotourism and eco and adventure tourism, where I worked for about 2 years. Yeah, but unfortunately, early last year, COVID came, and I knew that working in tourism was not an option anymore. And I knew that I need another career path change. And so I felt, although my work at this company was really fun with all the jungle kayaking and ziplining, I really kind of felt that I was more drawn to office work, and especially building the websites that we have been working on at that time in the company. And yeah, this is how my kind of idea to work in tech came up to me. I left Laos in March last year and went back to Sweden. I did some research, and I found so many sources claiming that I can get well-paid work in tech within 3 months of learning. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do specifically in tech. And I just chose to learn machine learning firstly.
Machine learning, wow.
Yeah, I had no idea at that point what it really was. And I kind of believed it has something to do with learning and teaching. And I was like kind of drawn to this idea. I think that's why it kind of sounds fancy. And I took this Udemy course for beginners in machine learning. And I remember it didn't make much sense to me at that time.
Machine learning for beginners. Wow. I want to see what that looks like.
Well, I couldn't, at that point, I didn't even understand what a function is or databases. Like I had no idea about it. And I went further in the course and I realized that it's not really for beginners, maybe for someone who studied before computer science, but not for someone who never wrote a line of code. So I just found, I had a friend that worked in web development. So I asked him for advice, and he recommended to go into web development. He said it's much easier. And yeah, that's what I did. I searched for many different resources. I even started a boot camp that I was totally not satisfied with.
Oh, you actually went to a boot camp?
Yeah, I went to the boot camp. I started, I didn't finish that. I resigned because it was 3 months program. And within these 3 months, it was the whole full stack and even some mobile application, I think. So it was quite fast when I realized that it's not going deep enough to actually being able to teach me on the professional level.
It's like the Goldilocks problem, right? The machine learning one is just way out there, and then maybe the bootcamp is kind of fast. There's so many ways of learning. I think it's so confusing now. I mean, not only is our technologies getting more complex, and the way that they intertwine and work together is confusing, but there's so many ways of learning that it's also confusing.
Right, yeah. Right. And like boot camps are the first things that comes to you when you search how to learn to code, mm-hmm. Right? It's not necessarily the best option, right? But we don't know when we start learning about those things, what is a best option for us to learn to start a career.
Right.
So, right. Yeah.
And I think there's different options. I mean, it could work for some people, but I think, right, they're presented as the option to learn to code versus other than free tutorials. But yeah, there's a lot of different learning modalities. So how did you end up finding Launch School? Just online somehow?
Yeah. I was part of, I think, a Facebook group for people that wanted to learn to code, and someone recommended Launch School there. And because I checked everything I possibly could on internet, so I checked that directly. And I remember, I think I spent whole day, many hours reading everything there was about Launch School, everything on the website and all the recommendation and feedbacks about it. And I just felt directly that was it. I just got hooked because, the mastery-based approach was something that particularly worked for me because I'm a teacher. I have a background in teaching. I do understand that you have to have some kind of pedagogy in order to teach other people. It's not enough that you are a great software engineer. That's not enough to teach other people. You have to have some kind of the didactic approach behind that. So that's why I think that I got mostly interest with Launch School.
And I don't think a lot of people know this, but we're one of the oldest programming schools around. So that didactic approach is actually just earned through years of maybe doing the wrong thing or doing things that didn't get the kind of results that we were interested in getting. So, I would say that in the very beginning in 2012, we also were sort of just kind of bouncing around. But yeah, I'm totally glad that you found us. And another thing I want to mention is there's so many ways of learning. Jesse mentioned the master's program. Liz was self-learning a little bit. You did a boot camp, and Launch School is just one path. It's not the path. All three of you ended up here, but I don't want to pitch Launch School as like the path. My whole approach to this is that there's a lot of different paths and they could all work. But for Launch School, one of the things that I try to do for Launch School is allow people to kind of leave if it's not a good fit, like leave very quickly, very easily, without a big consequence. This is why we price it the way that we do. And this is why we don't have annual plans. This is why we don't have, believe it or not, I get a lot of emails asking is there a, one fixed cost for core and maybe a little discount or something. And it's that's just not what I want to do. I don't want to, we had that before. Prior to Launch School, we had the courses that were sold for hundreds and thousands of dollars, and it's just an awkward situation. And I think education as a whole tends to be that way, where they want you in and they're like, do everything they can to keep you there. And I actually think a more student-centric way is just to let people come in, but then let people leave, right? If it's not a good fit, because who knows if it's a good fit or not. But for all three of you, it is, and it has been, so that's good. And I think we can spend hours just talking about your backgrounds and history, and I will save that for another podcast episode. But for this one, the focus the topic that I wanted to talk about was the social network, because that is a really interesting group you three are doing. And the question I have is, how did the social network group start? What was the genesis or founding story here?
So the social network kind of came together pretty quickly a few months ago. Another student, Lena, posted and was asking if anyone wanted to get involved, just to bring people together for informal meetups. And she got this idea from another student group, which is The Spot. That one's for student-led study groups. And she was chatting with Christian and Rodney, and my understanding of the conversation was they were talking about Austin and said like, hey, he's super nice. We should get to know him more. I wish we had some opportunity to just chat with him informally. And so that idea sat with her until she posted around October. And so Lena and Kyle, Janae, and myself started organizing. And initially we kind of called it beta mode. And we were sending out surveys to just get feedback on what people wanted. And we set up a Slack channel to bring people together and started organizing and putting social posts out to say, hey, we're doing this thing. Come join this channel if you want to know more about it. And so we wound up having an initial meeting, and it was just a chat group. We had about 12 people, I think, and we all showed up as moderators because we wanted to see how it turned out. And it wound up into being like a 90-minute conversation. It was really fun.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
just wanted to catch up and nothing, no topic specifically.
Yeah, a whole bunch of topics came up, but we didn't have an agenda. We figured worst case scenario, we'd bring up some random topics.
That is so great. Yeah. And I guess in a COVID world, everyone's looking for a community, and we have such a great community of students here at Launch School. It's maybe natural to have that. Great.
Totally. And I actually asked them all I asked Lena and Kyle and Janae why they were excited to work on the social network initially. And it touches on what you were just saying, where like Lena felt like sometimes live coding and such is awkward. And so she wanted to build rapport and get to know people in a less transactional way. And Kyle, he basically felt like Launch School is his academic world right now, and it was missing the archetypal social interaction that you get in higher learning. So as soon as the social network came up, he was like, there's the 2 a.m. pizza party that this is missing. So
exactly.
Yeah, everyone just got excited about it. And actually recently Katarina became a new moderator too.
Yeah, that's great. And colleges are all going online now, all schools going online. So I think everyone's kind of struggling with this, right? Historically, I do think that having an on-campus environment at a university does give you that huge social environment. But yeah, in the online world, we needed to have more events like this, right? More an outlet of sorts, because it might be awkward to talk about your personal life or something unrelated when everyone's there to solve this exercise, right? So yeah, like you said, it's transactional. Do you want to talk about the community projects that came out of this, these initial meetings? What was that about, and what was the reason for that?
Yeah, so we had a whole bunch of ideas of all kinds of different meetups we could have. And so we each committed to doing a few of our beta sessions and wanted to have different ideas. And so I hosted ones that we used Pictionary, I forgot the name, like scribble.io, I think. And then Kyle had an idea to do kind of a beer hall thing. And so they were just themed conversations sometimes. And we had Mia come on as a moderator, and she got everyone together to play Among Us and do an ugly Christmas sweater contest. And so it really comes down to the creativity to whoever is hosting an event and what ideas and topics come up in general in the community.
Yeah, that's great. And we have such a diverse student body, like the three of you, for example. Liz, you're in Colorado, Jesse's in Nigeria, Katarina's in Sweden. I mean, it's just worldwide, but the common bond here is, wanting to learn things well. And also I think there's a sense of professionalism here in this community. And so having a social group, I think it just adds to that flavor to it. So that's great. Ugly sweater contest. Wish we had some pictures there to post to our blog or something.
Yeah, because I just wanted to add that I thought that social network was super needed at the community at that time, because at least for me, it was just a great way to meet with other people. But also, like, I think that there is something unique in social network and lunch school community in general. And I don't know, maybe it's because we have to search for lunch school. It's not the first thing that pops up in Google when we search for how to learn to code. And like, people have to search for it and take a prep course and read a book and go through all these steps. So that I think that it gathers kind of people that wants something more, that's searching for more and willing to do like hard work, and that are proactive and focusing on making things like Liz and Jesse. And for example, you have an idea and like you share this idea, and then you straight away get 3 or 4 other people joining in and wanting to help you to make it happen. And that is happening all the time, not only with social network, but with all the communities here. And I think that for people that, I know there's a lot that just go through the curriculum and just learning, but not really participating, I think you miss a lot, because it's really a group of amazing people. And I think that's a unique opportunity to have this bond with someone that can last much longer than lunch school curriculum itself. So yeah, I think super needed.
Yeah, really good point. And I think this is a place where you have pretty ambitious people too. Today they are your classmates or colleagues at launch school. Tomorrow they're working at a company, and that's your professional network in the future. So certainly, yeah. And networking, my advice for people at launch school usually is don't network outside too much or too early. And the reason is because people put you in a bucket, right? They don't know what launch school is. We're not well known, as you said. And they might just say, okay, you're learning. Even a year later, where you've had this great transformation, but they still put you in that learning bucket. But people at launch school know what you're going through, right? There's this idea of like, hey, we've all chosen the rigorous path, right? The path that's a little bit longer and harder. And so we understand what we're going through. So I think that's absolutely right. And your other point, Katarina, I think is really interesting. And I heard this from other people too, where one of the things they like about launch school once they come is that it's we're not out there, we're not marketing led, right? We're not, it's kind of hard to find even if you do find us, you have to do our prep course, which, we ask you to read like 4 books. We ask you to take this other course first, right? Elsewhere. And we ask you to do all this stuff. And you sort of have to do that before you join even the paid courses. So people who make it through have to be dedicated, have to be motivated through that process. I think it's a very like egalitarian way of filtering people, right? It's not filtering based on like what your credentials are or what your historical achievement is. It's filtering based on effort. It's filtering based on how much work can you do. So I really like that approach to the prep courses. So before we get off this topic of just the genesis of the social network, I kind of wanted to ask about, so we talked about the organizational side, how it came about, but what is the student experience like in terms of the attendees?
So in terms of participation in the social network, so when I resumed towards the end of the year, after being away for some time due to being unwell, I realized a lot of changes in Launch School Slack. So I saw something about the social network, and I realized Lina was involved with it, and my perception of it was quite limited. I was just wondering, why should I get involved in this now? I'm just resuming, and all my study buddies have they've gone ahead of me. I'm not ready for. I don't think I'm quite ready to just interact and stuff like that. So that was my perception of it. So I joined the social network, and I think I was observing what was going on there. I think at first, what I observed was more like you just have social connections where there is an event and a number of persons are allowed to participate. But with time, I think my perception started changing. I realized that it wasn't just games per se, but it was something that was providing value to students. It was a platform, that was also providing value to students, because afterwards, there was also an event, to discuss about study habits and ways to improve. And subsequently, not too long after that, there was this call for participation. That's talking about study week, trying to discuss about study habits and ways to improve study techniques and all things pertaining studying, just to improve our productivity. So that was when my perception began to change. And that was when I really got involved with the social network. And when that study week stuff came up, I really didn't know it was going to be a conference. Based on the initial proposition, it just grew from that.
I wanted to maybe talk about that a little bit, because this is initially started out as a fun ad hoc social group, right? Ugly sweater contest, playing Among Us and all that stuff. How did we go from that to starting a conference on studying?
So the idea for the conference actually came from the general channel in Slack. I saw a new student had joined, and they were asking about tools that people use to manage their studies. We need to use a lot of tools to stay on top of everything we're learning in Launch School. And I thought it was a great topic for a mini, just 1 hour chat where everyone would share basically a walkthrough of the tools that they're using. And so I messaged the student and I said, hey, would it be helpful to have a meetup like this? And they said yes. And so I put out a call in the social network and I said, hey, who wants to do a lightning talk and do a demo of whatever tools you use to stay on top of your studies in Launch School? And the response was very positive, and a lot of people wanted to actually do a full 1 hour presentation on various topics. And so my mindset around this had to change from being just a quick meetup to being a conference. And so I started treating it that way and taking it a little bit more serious. And so, yeah, it kind of just happened, I guess. And it was really fun to put it all together. And it was a lot of work between everyone, but it was great. And I like how basically the infrastructure for having the social network set up let this happen and let it happen very quickly.
Yeah, I think this is where sort of you caught my attention, right? In terms of having a conference, all of a sudden I was like, there's a conference happening. What conference is this? I'm like, oh, this is a launch school conference. And then because the social network was happening sort of, on its own. And I think I might have been peripherally aware of it. But when the conference came about, I thought, wow, isn't this great? Because as you all know, hanging out in our Slack and our community, study habits, how to study, these sort of things are topics that come up over and over and over for us, right? And to have a conference dedicated to it where we can collect some of the best practices, some of the best ideas, it just struck me as being really, really important and something we can reuse. And I think this is it right here. This is what we're trying to get at Launch School: how to study, how to learn. Learning programming is not too hard if you can figure this out. There's still steps you have to go through, of course, but this is the secret to learning deeply. And I feel like when you collect people in a place where they care about this, you're all of a sudden focusing on the actual core problem that people face, right? Time management, focus, study ability. This is it. This is the key that unlocks pretty much everything. If you think long term, this is the highest ROI. You can't spend enough time on this topic, right? If you think short terms, like I get a job in a month, well, yeah, you don't really have time to learn how to study. But if you think in terms of a career, this is how you're not only going to get a job, but how you're going to grow your career. And if you can grow your career, you're basically guaranteed almost to be a millionaire, and at least if you can work in the U.S. I should say that. But you're going to do fine in terms of making money. So in some ways, I feel like this is you're tackling some of the most important things I think that people should focus on. So I was really happy to see it. And here's another thing I noticed: these talks, wow, they're no joke. I mean, these are conference level talks. I mean, like conferences you would pay hundreds of dollars to attend. These are really, really good. So maybe I want to talk about that real quick, the conference talks. Which talks did you all enjoy and find helpful?
So I think it's a very difficult question, because just to choose one, I think all of them was extremely useful. And just as you say, Chris, they were extremely well organized. I could literally I took actually something from each one of them and applied directly to my study routine. I sleep better now. I even give a second chance to the flashcards and so much more. I think if I would choose one, which is very difficult, I think the one I think was interesting was Lina's talk about Bloom's taxonomy, because I think nowadays there are so many talks that teach you how to learn something in like 20 hours, or how to master a subject in 3 months. And that gives us a false sense of what acquiring a skill really means. And I think that there's not so many of the talks that focus on how to master something, and especially in the context of software engineering, that you really have to have those fundamentals, because this is a knowledge built upon knowledge. You cannot hack your way through this. You have to have those fundamentals that Launch School teaches us. And I think that, I found that Bloom's taxonomy was a really nice way to visualize the path to mastery, and just giving tools to indicate on which cognitive level I am. But to be honest, all of the talks that we had during this conference were focusing on how we master, or how we learn to master the material with that. And that I really, really appreciate from all of the talks.
Yeah, I mentioned the sort of diversity at Launch School, right? And I pointed to you three in terms of geographic diversity, and we have so many people with just different backgrounds. Like, for example, Lina, who did the Bloom's taxonomy talk, she has a psychology background, and I know that she draws a lot from that background in the talks that she gives at Launch School. Like she gave another one that I thought was excellent to the Launch School Women's Group on imposter syndrome. And I was looking at the slides for that. It's not just her take on the topic, but she draws upon her background and the literature and psychology to back it up. That's what I like about these talks. They're backed up. It's not my opinion, or not only my opinion. So, and we have so many people like that at Launch School, where just different backgrounds, different experiences. So, yeah, any other talks?
Yeah, that's really nice. From Katarina talking about Bloom's taxonomy, I think I discussed earlier with her, and we are thinking of ways to apply that. And that's something that will really help me grow in the program as well. So as for me, I did listen to the talks, to every one of them, and every one of them impacted my own practice. But specifically, there were two talks that I'm actually applying at the moment, and that has to do with Julius's talk on building tacit knowledge in software engineering, and also Kali's talk about beyond technical, talking about building communication skills. So with respect to Julius's talk, building tacit knowledge, I really learned a lot from that. And my takeaway from that is that starting from the RB 101 course, I'm going to deliberately and mindfully build tacit knowledge. And there are areas which I've mapped out in which I intend to build tacit knowledge. For example, problem solving, working on programming exercises, that's one part of it. And I think that is, as much as that's important, I think a key area for me has to do with working on the command line applications. I think that's something, I'm just being introduced to that for the first time. And I just see that, this builds upon, as I progress further into the program. And it's important that I build tacit knowledge in developing web applications or in developing command line applications, whatever form of applications it is. So it's something that I'm deliberately practicing and mindfully intending to work on as I move through the program, through Launch School. And also talking about Kali's talk, that's very important. We just the title itself, just beyond technical, we're talking about most of what we learn in Launch School actually has to do with technical skills. And that's the major thing that actually draws us to Launch School, because of the quality of the technical of the education offered here. So so when that talk came up, it was quite insightful for me, and it made me even think beyond what she shared. And I thought that there are actually a couple of other skills that are beyond technical skills that will help a software engineer, perform excellently and at optimal levels, in whatever they're engaged in. So the analogy she gave an example using Capstone. And when she said that, I recall there were some messages I read, on Launch School Slack. I think there was a student, there's some students in Capstone Prep who already worked on an application together. I think Ryan, Aaron, and one other student who are in Capstone Prep together, and they already worked on an application before Capstone. And one other student made a comment there. Well, it was not wishing, he wrote a comment there, said that he wished that he had this kind of opportunity to work with the people that he was team members with in Capstone before the Capstone proper. So that's lighted up a bulb in me, and that lit something in my mind. And there was another student who talked about something relating to Capstone, working together. And that made me realize that there were other skills needed, not just technical skills, to work quite well. While each individual may be strong on their own, working together requires skills. It requires communication skills, requires team working skills, having skills on how to coordinate the efforts of each individual member of the team, delegation, all those things. These are skills that helps to perform excellently. So these are things that I think we need as software engineers in training, to help us do well. So I think that was a great talk for me. So it's something that I'm beginning to work on mindfully, and I hope to, to build some skills beyond technical skills, which I'm learning here. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. We always talk about the master-based learning. We talk about, the curriculum, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, whenever I talk to employers, they say the same thing. They're like, what about the teamwork and what about the interpersonal skills? I mean, yeah, that's half the battle. And that's why also I feel like sometimes I have a hard time answering a question when I don't know the student very well. Somebody brand new come to Launch Core, didn't even come to Launch Core, just send an email, say, hey, after I finish the curriculum, can I get a job that pays this much? Right? And I'm thinking to myself, well, it also depends on who you are, right? It's not only dependent on what you know, like here's X amount of knowledge, and this will get you this much money for sure, right? A big part of it is, working with others, and to the point earlier of like getting involved in a social network, getting involved or the spot. This is an opportunity to, in a relatively safe place, to exercise that muscle, right? If you're lacking there. And I'm a true believer in master-based learning in anything. You can learn how to learn. You can learn JavaScript. You can also learn how to be a great teammate. These are skills you can establish, right? Maybe not in a month or 3 months, but you can get better at it. And so you have to find places where you can exercise that muscle, where you can improve. And again, at Launch School, I'm just so happy to see opportunities and channels for people to exercise various muscles, not just on the technical realm, right? But on the study realm and on the group work realm. So really good point. So Liz, any outstanding talks on your mind?
So I want to cheat on this question and just plug the last few that we didn't mention yet. We had Rodney. He talked about the 4 Ps of programming, and I really liked this part of his talk. He basically said, make your journey personal, and find the goals that you need to achieve to get to where you need to be, and to have a pattern to study and overlearn and teach others, and to work with other people, and basically have a community to support you in your learning, and to make sure you balance your inner peace. And the inner peace was something that Julio talked about, and I learned a lot from his talk on basically how to make sure you're optimizing your study time, because you can have kind of lows and highs of productivity, and it's not just about the time you commit, but how you're committing your time. And we also had Mandy's talk, which she showed us how to use Enki and Typora, and I was totally afraid of using the flashcard tool before. It looked really complex to set up, but she walked through and made it look not only really useful, but also manageable to set up. And then we, of course, had Jesse's talk, which was on the principles of mastery in learning. And I wanted to just mention with his talk that he put so much work in, and I was really impressed to see not only how much effort he put in to give his first presentation ever in this conference, but also how the community worked with him and how he really reached out and just collaborated with everyone to go far in a short amount of time.
I don't think I'm aware of that story. Like, what was that? So Jesse, you were a presenter, of course, I knew that, but I don't think I was aware of the support that you got, or I thought, you just did it. What was that? What's the background there? What's the backstory there?
Okay, when the conference started getting close and I got to know the people who were going to participate in the study conference, that actually that brought about a kind of nervousness and a kind of anxiety because these are popular launch school people. And
Popular
I was
launch
just
school people. Now you're going to be in that group thanks to this podcast, right?
these are popular launch school people. And I just said, wow, what am I doing here? I'm the new guy. So, and I'm very much early in the curriculum. So I just felt, okay, how was I going to go about this? So first I had to think about a topic that was relevant to the community. I know we already know about mastery, so that came up, and I think I revised that topic as well. And in the course of walking through the presentation, it actually went through several revisions. I had to reach out to Janae, I reached out to Liz, I reached out to Lena, I reached out to Rodney, I reached out to Benjamin. They were very helpful, in making this work because I took their feedback. They gave me a lot of feedback, and I didn't take it personal, but I just knew I needed to improve on what I was presenting. I had to think more about what I was offering. And also, considering this is my first experience trying to even create a presentation or give a presentation. So I had to read a lot of things on presentation. First, I read Presentation Zen by Guy Reynolds, and I went on to learn how to use a presentation design software. I had to do all of this within the short period of time that was available, and I'm really glad it came out nicely. So I had to deal with, in the course of doing all of this, I had to deal with a lot of anxiety. The community was very helpful towards making this, and it just made me, this was my first experience, in just-in-time learning. And it was very, it was an exciting one as well as challenging. And it was made possible because there were people who were there to help, in the course of, of moving through that path for me. And I'm really grateful for that.
So why did you volunteer? Was it just you wanted to challenge yourself and it was just a hunch you had, or what? What made you even volunteer, even because this was out of your comfort zone?
I participated in that because a friend reached out to me and told me that the friend saw that I could offer something, for this for the study week, and the friend reached out to me and told me the person knows my practice and how I study and stuff. So the person just knew, this friend knew that I had something to offer, for the study week. So the friend reached out to me and I thought about it. I said, yes, I was going to go for this. And at first I didn't know it was going to be this, it was going to be a conference. So I didn't think about all these details, that we are talking about now, but I'm really happy that I really didn't think about that at that time. And I just jumped into it, and it was really nice. I'm really happy I did that. So it just goes to tell that we can always learn any skill that we've set our hearts to learn. So nothing, you don't need to, it doesn't need to come naturally to you, but you need to practice, do whatever is needful. And over time, you develop skills that are relevant for whatever field you're practicing.
Yeah, exactly. And everything can be learned, including study habits, including presenting, including working as a teammate. Yeah, that's great. Maybe I missed this, but do you want to mention specific people who helped you with the presentation, or what was it mostly you, or how was that?
Yeah, I did mention that earlier, but I'll go over that again. Okay, Janae was the first person who came on board, and I think I worked the most with her. Then I had Liz, I had Benjamin. I think he's currently in RB 102 now. Yeah, I can't remember his surname. So, and I had Lena, and I had Rodney, because I think at the time when I'd already created my presentation, and when I reached out to Rodney, and I wanted to have his thoughts on it. And funny enough, I wanted to have his thoughts. Okay, so he asked me, there were certain questions he asked me, which made me think through, the structure. And over time, through all the feedbacks I got, I had to revise the structure, of the presentation to make it flow logically. And also Lena and Liz, they also helped finally to to rehearse the presentation. And we actually did that past 12 that's past midnight at my end here. We actually did that rehearsal at that time, and there was no electricity when I was doing that. So that was quite interesting, and I think that was when I think they got to discover quite a number of things about me within that period.
So conference was a big hit. Talks are great, and for the audience of this podcast who are listening, and if you haven't checked it out, make sure to do so. I believe all the recordings are on our Reddit community. So it's reddit.com/r/launch school. And I wish we had a better URL. Maybe I'll put it in the show notes of this podcast. But how do we keep this going? So we fulfill the goals of a fun community without being too rigid, but also kind of put on these events that are not related to like studying for an assessment. How do we keep this really great thing going?
That's a great question. So we have been lightly organizing with GitHub, and we're moving over to Basecamp. But basically, we will need to continue having more moderators come on board, and probably we'll set up a bit more of a structure over time. Since it's early on right now, we don't have that in place necessarily, but we have a system for vetting new moderators and setting them up for success. And so we're going to probably take it one step at a time. And for anyone who wants to join, you can hit up the social network channel in Slack.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think Jesse's mentioned, all these like popular launch school people. I think this is unlike high school. Anyone can be popular at launch school. So as long as you're willing to contribute and help. So yeah, so thanks so much for coming on, Liz, Katarina, and Jesse. And you're all doing a great thing here. And this is something that I think can help a lot of people. And it's part of my job to also make sure that we foster a community that can keep these things going and keep attracting really good students, high caliber students that keep contributing to the community. So before we wrap up here, do any of you have any parting thoughts?
I would like to encourage every one of you to participate in the social network. And the reason for that is that, we actually deal with certain vulnerabilities, but we find it difficult to be vulnerable to ourselves. And I think it creates a good space to be vulnerable with people of like minds and people who can help you improve and encourage you on the journey. I was actually reading a piece by students on the forum, and the student was actually pouring out his heart about the discouragement and the struggles he has been going through the course. And I just felt there are some other persons like this, but some people are not just willing to be vulnerable because they just feel everybody's perfect and everybody has it together. But we're all growing here. So I think I would like to encourage you to be part of that. Embrace the community, and the community will actually help you grow. When you connect with the right people here, you build meaningful relationships and you grow as well from that. And I think that's my take on it. So
maybe I will also add I just wanted to thank Liz and Jesse and all the other organizers for this conference, because I found it extremely useful, and I think many other students as well. I think learning how to learn is not an obvious skill, and especially in context of software engineering. And I think the community of people around it and the social network, especially now during this difficult time when we have COVID, is extremely difficult to socialize with one another. And I think that communities like Social Network and Spot and all the others in Launch School, bringing this sense of community and togetherness. And I would like to really thank for putting this all together.
Extreme gratitude to Liz for initiating it, for organizing it, and to Jesse and Katarina, all the speakers who spent so much time. I think, again, the high quality of talks just really surprised me. And not that I underestimate people, but you can tell people spent a lot of time preparing the talks. It turned out really well. So
Just another shout out to all of the speakers, and to second that I know you put in so much work, and it was really awesome to see the impact it had for so many people, and I hope it continues to help future launch school students.
thanks so much for hopping on the podcast. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.
Thank
for
you very
having
much.
us. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks
Bye.
for listening to the Launch School podcast. Check back for new episodes and don't forget to like, subscribe, and review.